Station Command. We have a Code 7 in Technical Lab 3. The Crinathian cubs just tried to replicate the humans' cleaning method and accidentally created a Class 3 atmospheric hazard. Commander Velix's secondary hearts lurched as the emergency channel crackled to life. Code 7. Toxic exposure. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Exposure with casualties. He was already running before his conscious mind caught up, his 4 legs carrying him through the corridors at a pace that sent junior staff scrambling aside. "How many down?" he barked into his comm. 3 cubs unconscious, 2 more in respiratory distress, medical teams en route, but, Commander, the readings don't make sense. Their internal temperatures spiked to critical levels and the air quality sensors are screaming about particulate metal vapors. Velix burst through the lab doors to find controlled chaos. 2 medical technicians hunched over small Crinathian bodies, their scaled forms eerily still on the floor. The acrid stench of melted circuitry burned his nostrils. 2 more cubs sat against the wall, coughing violently, their chest plates heaving with each struggled breath. And in the center of it all stood the human. Andrea wiped down a pristine circuit board with a small cloth, her movements methodical and unhurried. She glanced up as Velix entered, confusion crossing her flat-featured face. "Oh, hey, Commander. Is something wrong? I heard alarms, but—" "Is something wrong?" Velix's voice cracked. He gestured wildly at the collapsed cubs, at the emergency personnel flooding into the room, at the 3 melted circuit boards smoking on the far workbench. "What happened here?" Andrea blinked, looking around as if seeing the chaos for the first time. I was just cleaning the boards." The cubs were watching. They seemed really interested in the maintenance work. I thought it was cute how they wanted to learn. Medical Chief Torvin burst through behind Velix, his scanner already active and sweeping across the nearest cub. "Oxygen saturation is at 43%. No, wait, that can't be right. Internal temperature reading 270 degrees standard. By the ancestors, their respiratory systems are in thermal shock." "Thermal shock?" Andrea set down her cloth, concern finally registering on her face. "What do you mean? I was just showing them how to clean dust off the components." Velix felt his head plates tighten, a stress response he couldn't suppress. "Walk me through exactly what you did, every detail." "Okay, sure." Andrea gestured to the clean circuit board in front of her. "So these boards accumulate dust particles over time, right? Messes with the conductivity. Standard maintenance is to carefully blow the dust off before doing a contact clean, like this." She leaned close to the board and gently exhaled across its surface, sending invisible dust motes scattering. The room went silent, except for the labored breathing of the injured cubs. "You blew on it," Velix said slowly. "Yeah? Just a quick puff to clear the loose particles, then you wipe it down and—" "The cubs tried to replicate your method," Torvin interrupted, his voice hollow. He held up his scanner, showing the playback from the lab's security feed. 3 small Crinathian cubs leaned over circuit boards, their mouths opening, their chests expanding. And then brilliant orange flames erupted from their throats. The circuit boards didn't just heat up, they liquefied. Metal components ran like water. Toxic fumes billowed upward. The cubs, caught in the backwash of their own superheated breath reflecting off the work surface, collapsed within seconds. "Oh my God," Andrea whispered. "Oh my God, I didn't— They breathe fire?" "Fire?" Velix stared at her. "What do you mean fire? Of course they breathe fire. They're Crinathians. Every sentient species produces thermal breath as a basic biological function. The cub's breath averages 400 degrees standard. That's actually cool for their age. Adults reach 600 or higher." Andrea's skin had gone pale. Another bizarre human response he'd cataloged but never understood. "You're telling me that kid—" She pointed at Ember, who was coughing weakly against the wall. "Has breath hot enough to melt metal?" "Had you never been briefed on Crinathian biology?" Torvin demanded, his attention split between his patients and this bewildering conversation. I was told they were fire-aligned. I thought that meant they liked warm environments or something, not that they were literally breathing flames. Velix's communicator erupted with new alerts. Commander, we have reports from residential sectors. 4 more cubs showing similar symptoms. They tried the human cleaning method on their personal devices. Seal off all technical areas. Get Education Director Silith to the command center immediately. And somebody explain to me. He turned back to Andrea, his voice dropping to something between horror and fascination. How hot is human breath? Andrea shrugged helplessly. I don't know. Body temperature? 98 degrees. Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in your units. Torvin's scanner nearly fell from his hands. 37 degrees standard. You're telling me your breath is 37 degrees? Is that bad? Bad! Bad! Velix felt his head plates begin to separate, a stress response bordering on panic. The coldest sentient species in known space has breath temperature of 190 degrees standard. You're operating at less than a fifth of that. How is that even possible? More medical personnel rushed past, heading toward the residential sectors where cubs had apparently turned their living quarters into toxic waste zones, trying to mimic the friendly humans' cleaning trick. Andrea looked down at the unconscious cubs, her expression stricken. Are they going to be okay? Unknown, Torvin said grimly, working over Pyrrhic's small form with a respirator. This type of thermal feedback injury, their own heat reflected back into their respiratory systems. We have limited treatment protocols. They essentially burn themselves from the inside. Because they tried to clean dust off circuit boards, Velix said, the words feeling unreal, even as he spoke them. Because they watched you blow cool air across a surface and thought they could do the same thing. Andrea's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Tell me how to help, please. I didn't know. I would never have. You couldn't have known, Torvin said, though his voice held an edge. Because apparently no one thought to mention that humans operate on thermal principles that shouldn't exist in sentient biology. Velix's communicator lit up again. Commander, Galactic Education Council is demanding an immediate report. They're calling an emergency session. He looked at the scene before him. Cubs fighting for breath, medical teams scrambling, melted circuitry smoking on workbenches, and one human maintenance technician who had nearly killed 6 children by teaching them how to clean dust off a circuit board. Send them everything, Velix said quietly, and tell them to clear their schedules. We have a Code 7 thermal incompatibility crisis, and I have a feeling we're about to discover that humans are breaking a lot more rules than we ever imagined. Andrea still stood frozen, staring at her hands as if they'd betrayed her. Your breath is cool, she whispered. That's what they'll call us now, isn't it? The cold ones. Velix had no answer. He was too busy trying to comprehend a species that defied every thermal law in the galaxy, and did it so casually they didn't even notice. Torvin's medical bay had transformed into a xenobiological crisis center within the hour. Pyrrhic, Ember, and Syndril lay in specialized thermal regulation pods, their small bodies wrapped in cooling matrices that hissed and steamed as they fought to bring down internal temperatures that had spiked beyond safe thresholds. Their core temperatures reached 420 degrees, Torvin announced, his scanner data projecting across the room's main display. For context, Commander, that's 40 degrees beyond their species' survivable maximum. The thermal feedback when their breath hit those metal surfaces and reflected back, it should have killed them instantly. Velix studied the readouts, his head plates still slightly separated from stress. But it didn't. Only because they collapsed before full thermal shock could cascade through their systems. Another 2 seconds of exposure. Torvin made a gesture of finality with his upper appendages. Andrea stood in the corner of the medical bay, her arms wrapped around herself in that peculiar, human self-comfort gesture. She'd refused to leave since the cubs had been brought in. Show me the security footage again, Velix said. The holographic display flickered to life. The technical lab, 30 minutes earlier. Andrea, leaning over, a circuit board, her posture relaxed and casual. Then the gentle puff of air across the surface. so subtle the cameras barely registered the movement. The three cubs watched with intense focus, their young eyes tracking every detail. Ember nudged Pyrrhic excitedly. The smallest cub, Syndrol, practically vibrated with eagerness to try. Then Andrea moved to the next board, and the cubs approached their own workstations. What happened next made Velix's stomachs churn even on the third viewing. The cubs leaned forward with identical enthusiasm, mimicking Andrea's posture perfectly. Their mouths opened, their chest plates expanded, and superheated plasma erupted from their throats. The circuit boards didn't melt. They vaporized. Metal components turned to liquid, then to vapor, then to toxic particulate matter in less than a second. The flames reflected off the metal surfaces, rebounded directly into the cubs' open mouths and airways. All three collapsed in unison. "By the ancestors," Velix whispered. They trusted her completely. They thought if the human could do it safely, so could they. "How was I supposed to know?" Andrea's voice cracked. "Nobody told me that breathing was a weapon for most species. On Earth, breath is just air. It's neutral. It doesn't do anything except help you talk and smell things and—" She pressed her palms against her eyes. "I almost killed children by teaching them to clean dust." Torven's communicator chimed. His expression darkened as he read the incoming data. "We have 11 more cubs and satellite stations showing similar symptoms." Word spread through the youth networks. Apparently the Crinathian cubs thought Miss Andrea's cool breath technique was the most amazing thing they'd ever seen. They've been trying to replicate it for the past 2 hours. 11 more? Andrea looked like she might be sick. Another disturbing human biological response. Educational networks are lighting up across 4 sectors. Velix's own device showed cascading alerts. Parents demanding to know why a human was allowed unsupervised contact with cubs. The Galactic Safety Commission has issued an emergency inquiry. 3 different news outlets are running stories with titles like "Human Maintenance Methods Hospitalized Dozens." "I was just cleaning circuits," Andrea said numbly. A soft chirping sound interrupted them. Ember was waking up, her small form stirring in the thermal pod. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on the room around her. "Miss Andrea?" The cub's voice was barely a whisper, rough from her damaged airways. Andrea moved to her side immediately, kneeling beside the pod. "I'm here, sweetie. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Why doesn't your magic breath work for us?" Ember's head tilted in confusion, that universal gesture of innocent curiosity that transcended species. "We did it, exactly like you. But it hurt." Velix watched Andrea's face crumble. The human reached out, then hesitated. Probably, unsure if touch was safe, if she might inadvertently harm the cub through some other impossible human quirk they hadn't discovered yet. "Because humans are different," Andrea said softly. "Very, very different. And I should have realized that before I showed you anything." Torven pulled up a new screen. "Commander, xenobiology expert Dr. Koresh is requesting immediate access. She says she's found something about human thermal biology that, and I'm quoting, violates every principle we thought we understood about sentient life." Velix's head plates drew together. "Send her in. Though at this point, I'm not sure anything about humans could surprise me anymore." Andrea laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "Oh, you'd be surprised what else we can do that apparently makes no sense." In her thermal pod, Ember watched the human with wide, wondering eyes. "The cold ones," she whispered. "That's what you are. The cold ones who breathe winter." Dr. Koresh swept into the medical bay like a force of nature, her 6 manipulator arms already gesturing at holographic data streams that followed her. The xenobiology expert's reputation preceded her. She'd cataloged thermal biology for 473 sentient species across the known galaxy. "I need the human," she announced without preamble. "Now!" Andrea stood up from beside Ember's pod, uncertainty written across her features. "I'm Andrea. I'm the one who—" Yes, the cleaning incident. Fascinating but irrelevant to the larger issue. Koresh produced a scanner that looked far more sophisticated than anything Torvin carried. Open your mouth and exhale slowly. I need baseline thermal readings. Okay. Andrea complied, breathing out steadily while the device hummed and clicked. Koresh's face went through several color shifts, a sign of extreme distress in her species. 34.2 degrees standard, slightly elevated from your resting state, probably stress response. She looked up at Velix. Commander, do you understand what this means? That humans operate at impossibly low temperatures? No. Koresh's manipulators trembled. That humans exist at impossibly low temperatures. Every sentient species in the Galactic database produces thermal breath as a fundamental aspect of consciousness itself. The leading theory is that sapience generates heat as a byproduct of complex neural processing. It's not just biology, it's physics. Thought creates thermal energy. But I think just fine, Andrea said, confusion evident in her voice. Exactly. Koresh thrust a manipulator at her. You shouldn't. According to every model we have, a brain operating at your temperature should be inert, dormant, non-functional. She pulled up comparison charts. The Crinathians at 400 degrees, the Vexillians at 200, the coldest recorded sentient species, the Thermaxi, at 190 degrees, and then humans. She zoomed in on Andrea's reading. At 34 degrees. You're operating at temperatures we associate with dead tissue. Velix felt his world tilt slightly. You're saying humans shouldn't be conscious? I'm saying humans violate thermodynamic principles that we thought were universal constants. Koresh began pacing, her agitation increasing. I've spent the last hour cross-referencing every database we have. 0 matches, 0 precedents, 0 logical explanations for how a species can achieve sapience while generating almost no thermal energy. Andrea raised her hand like a student in class. So, just to clarify, you guys literally breathe fire because your brains are hot? In oversimplified terms, yes. Neural activity generates heat. That heat must be expelled through respiration. The more intelligent the species, generally the higher their breath temperature. Koresh gestured at the recovering cubs. Crinathians are remarkably bright. Their 400-degree breath reflects sophisticated cognitive processing. And I'm at 34 degrees because we have no idea. Koresh's voice cracked with scientific frustration. Your species shouldn't exist. Yet here you are, walking around, thinking thoughts, performing maintenance work, and apparently teaching deadly techniques to children because nobody thought to mention that breathing is thermally hazardous across species. Torvin's communicator erupted with priority alerts. Commander, we have a problem. The Galactic Educational Safety Commission is demanding immediate suspension of all human-alien interaction until we can establish proper thermal safety protocols. How long will that take? Velix asked. The commission is saying 6 to 8 months for preliminary guidelines. 8 months? Andrea's voice rose. I'm supposed to just sit in quarantine for 8 months because I breathe cool air. It's not just breath, Koresh said grimly. She held up her scanner. According to these readings, your saliva is also at body temperature. Room temperature by most species standards. Your skin contact would feel cold to the cubs. Your presence in a room probably lowers the ambient temperature slightly. You are, from a thermal perspective, a walking anomaly that violates established safety parameters. Sindril stirred in his pod, his voice weak but curious. Dr. Koresh, does this mean Miss Andrea is magic? No, young one, it means she's impossible. The xenobiologist looked at Andrea with something between wonder and horror, which might be worse. Velix pulled up the station-wide communication system. Attention all personnel. Until further notice, all human-initiated demonstrations, teaching activities, or technical guidance are suspended pending safety review. Any species attempting to replicate human methods should cease immediately and report to medical for thermal evaluation. Andrea slumped against the wall. I just wanted to help clean some circuit boards. And instead you've broken xenobiology, Koresh said, not unkindly. She continued scanning, her manipulators dancing over controls. Though I must admit, from a purely scientific standpoint, This is the most exciting discovery of my career. Glad my weird cold breath could contribute to science, Andrea muttered. In their pods, the cubs watched with fascinated eyes. Even injured, even frightened, they couldn't look away from the impossible human who breathed winter and broke all the rules. Miss Andrea? Piric's small voice carried across the medical bay. Are all humans cold like you? Andrea smiled weakly. Yeah, kiddo. We're all cold, every single one of us. Ember's eyes went wide. A whole species of cold ones, like ice people. Great, Andrea sighed. That's definitely going to be my nickname now. Velix would have laughed if the situation weren't so serious. Instead, he watched his station's entire operational paradigm crumble around him, undone by something as simple as a human cleaning dust off a circuit board. By the third day, all 11 cubs had stabilized. Their respiratory systems had healed with the remarkable resilience of youth, though Torvin warned they'd need monitoring for thermal sensitivity for months to come. Andrea had spent those 3 days in what amounted to voluntary quarantine, reviewing every interaction she'd had with non-human species since arriving at the station. The list of potentially dangerous, normal human behaviors had grown alarmingly long. You drink cold beverages, Koresh said, her manipulators marking items on a hovering checklist. You consume frozen desserts. You touch metal surfaces with bare skin without injury. You tolerate temperature variations of up to 30 degrees in either direction without distress. And all of that is bad? Andrea asked from her seat in the conference room. Bad? It's incomprehensible. Koresh pulled up thermal imaging. When you touched that doorframe yesterday, you left a cold spot that persisted for 4 minutes. Most species would interpret that as a malfunctioning environmental system or a hull breach. Velix entered the room carrying a datapad that practically glowed with priority markers. The Galactic Council has issued their preliminary finding. Humans are to be classified as thermal anomaly species, Class 0. It's a new classification. They created it specifically for you. I'm honored. Andrea's sarcasm was gentle, tired. It means, Velix continued, that human interaction protocols will need to be established for every species individually. No blanket guidelines will suffice, because the thermal gap is too significant. So I'm stuck here for 8 months while bureaucrats argue about my cold breath. Actually, Koresh's expression shifted to something that might have been excitement. I may have a solution, if you're willing to help demonstrate. Andrea straightened. Anything. I can't just sit here knowing those cubs got hurt because of me. Follow me to Technical Lab 7 and, Commander, bring the cubs, the ones who are medically cleared for activity. 20 minutes later, Andrea stood in front of an observation window while Pyrrhic, Ember, and Sindril watched from the other side with wide, curious eyes. Torvin stood ready with medical equipment, and Velix had positioned himself where he could activate emergency protocols if needed. This is a standard circuit board, Koresh announced, placing one on the workspace visible to the cubs. It has accumulated dust. Now, cubs, what did Miss Andrea do to clean this? She blew on it, Ember said immediately. With her magic cold breath. Correct. And what happened when you tried? Sindril's head lowered. We hurt ourselves. Our breath was too hot. Exactly. Koresh produced several tools from a maintenance kit. But what if I told you that humans have many ways to move air? Andrea, please demonstrate alternative cleaning methods. Andrea picked up a small compressed air canister. This is what I should have shown you first. It's a tool that produces a stream of cool air without using breath. She demonstrated, dust particles dancing away from the circuit board. See? Same result, but safe for everyone. Pyrrhic's eyes lit up. We can use tools instead of breath? Absolutely. Andrea pulled out a soft brush next. This is even better for delicate components. You gently sweep away the dust, no heat involved at all. Koresh nodded approvingly. The error wasn't in the technique. It was in the assumption that all species clean things the same way. Andrea's methods work perfectly well. They just needed adaptation for thermal-positive species. So we're not broken? Ember asked, her voice small. Broken? Andrea's face softened. No, sweetheart. You're not broken. You're perfect exactly as you are. I should have asked about your abilities before demonstrating mine. Velix watched as Koresh distributed compressed air tools to each cub, showing them the proper handling procedures. The young Crinathians approached the equipment with cautious enthusiasm, testing gentle bursts of cool air against their palms. It feels like Miss Andrea's breath, Sindral exclaimed. That's because it's approximately the same temperature, Koresh explained. These tools let you work with cool air safely without risking thermal feedback. Andrea pressed her hand against the observation window. On the other side, Ember matched the gesture, her smaller palm aligning with the human's. I'm sorry I scared you, Andrea said softly. We're sorry we got hurt trying to be like you, Ember replied. How about, instead of being like each other, we learn to work together, Andrea suggested. Your heat and my cold, maybe that's not a problem. Maybe it's just different tools for different jobs. Pyrrhic activated his compressed air canister, watching dust motes scatter across the practice board. I can clean like Miss Andrea now, but different. Better for me. Exactly. Andrea smiled. You're not trying to be a cold one. You're being yourself, using tools that work for you. Koresh made several notes on her datapad. Commander, I'm recommending immediate revision of our educational protocols. Instead of suspension, we need integration, teaching all species about thermal diversity and safe cross-species collaboration. The Council won't like having their 8-month timeline undermined, Velix warned. The Council can adapt or fall behind. These cubs just learned in 20 minutes what bureaucrats will debate for months. Koresh gestured to the young Crinathians, who were now eagerly practicing with their new tools. Sometimes the best protocol is simply teaching everyone to use the right equipment. Andrea laughed. Genuine this time, not bitter. So I'm not banned from teaching anymore? You're not banned. You're required. Velix allowed himself a small smile. Someone needs to help us figure out what other normal human behaviors might accidentally hospitalize people. Better we learn now, with proper safety measures. Through the window, Sindral looked up from his practice board. Miss Andrea, when we're better at this, can you teach us other Cold One techniques? Absolutely, but next time, we'll make sure everyone has the right tools first. The cubs chirped their agreement, returning to their careful practice with compressed air and brushes. Not trying to breathe cool like humans, but learning to work safely alongside them. It wasn't the resolution the Galactic Council had envisioned, but it was the one that actually worked. 2 weeks later, Andrea's maintenance shift had gained 6 enthusiastic assistants. Miss Andrea, I cleaned 3 boards today, Pyrrhic announced proudly, holding up his compressed air canister like a trophy. And I didn't melt any of them, Sindral added, which earned approving chirps from his siblings. Andrea grinned, checking their work. Perfect technique, all of you. You're getting better at this than I am. That's because we have the best teacher, Ember said, already moving to the next workstation. The cold one who breathes winter. The nickname had stuck. Station-wide, humans were now officially referred to as thermal null species in documentation, but among the cubs and their families, Andrea was simply the cold one, said with affection rather than fear. Velix appeared in the lab doorway, observing the coordinated work. Cubs using tools designed for their biology, supervised by a human who understood thermal limitations. The Galactic Council's report had finally arrived, a 600-page document establishing protocols Andrea had implemented in an afternoon. Station Command is requesting your methodology for the education database, Velix said. Andrea wiped down a completed circuit board. Tell them it's simple. Ask before assuming, adapt before copying, and always make sure everyone has the right tools. And if they want more detailed guidance, she glanced at the cubs who were playfully competing to see who could clean fastest without melting components. Tell them to talk to my assistants. They're the real experts now. Pyrrhic overheard and puffed his chest proudly. We're experts, the hot ones who learned from the cold one. The galaxy's strangest maintenance crew, Andrea laughed, pulling out her lunch container. Ember peered at the contents curiously. "What's that?" "Ice cream. Want to see something really weird?" Andrea held up the frozen dessert. "Humans eat this on purpose." 6 pairs of eyes went wide with fascinated horror. "Frozen food," Syndrel whispered. "The cold ones eat frozen things." "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet." Andrea grinned. "Wait until I tell you about snow." The cubs leaned in eagerly. Compressed air canisters forgotten. Ready for another impossible lesson from the human who broke all their rules and taught them how to work together anyway. Different temperatures, different methods, same goal. That was the new paradigm, and it was working perfectly.